There we go. And we are live. I'll go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the City Council for January 5th, 2026, the first meeting of the year. I'd like to, we'll move on to invocation and pledge of allegiance, which will be led by Councilmember Gardner.
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for this day, and we thank you for the beautiful weather that you've given us this last weekend and that we are going to get to enjoy this week, God. Just thank you for blessing us with such a great place to live and surrounded by your nature and beauty, and we just thank you for making Maumelle this great place that we can enjoy. Lord, as we come together to do the business of the city tonight, we just ask for wisdom in all the things that we are about to discuss, and that we can represent the will of the residents that have elected all of us here to serve in this capacity, God, and we just ask for wisdom each and every time that we meet, that we can make good decisions for this city. God, thank you for those that serve this city each and every day. We're so thankful for all the employees and everything that they do to make this such a great place to live and to work, oh God. We ask for your blessings in life and that we can always find someone to serve and help someone each and every day, Lord. It's through your Son's name we pray. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. We will move on to approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. The first is the copy of the minutes from December 15th. I'll go ahead and open the floor for any discussion on that. If there is none, I'd entertain a motion. I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll move on to the minutes of the December 29th special meeting. Open the floor for discussion. Entertain a...
Motion to approve. Second.
I've got a motion to approve the minutes of December 29th council meeting. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. I do have one public comment card that may come up on an agenda item that may come up, but we'll get to that at that time. For the department report, interestingly, you'll see that I noted that we'd be hearing from Public Works. Well, y'all may know that Mike Hogan, of course, has resigned. Well, today was his last day, and so we said goodbye to Mike earlier today, though I have his phone number on speed dial, and I'm sure we'll be reaching out to him in the meantime. Though, when he did resign, he came in, and I think he talked 10 seconds about why he was leaving, and then he spent the next long period of time talking about why he thought that that his replacement should come from within the department that's there. And in particular, he was pushing for one person and that person's potential. I took what he said, but I also went and met one at a time with the people who directly reported to him, and that's the sanitation supervisor, the street supervisor, the building maintenance supervisor, the grounds maintenance supervisor, the fleet maintenance supervisor, the construction ops coordinator, and of course the office administrator. Primarily to get their opinion on what the department needs going forward, as well as to see if there was anyone in there that they felt was being underutilized and had the potential to move up into that position. Without fail, every one of those people pointed to sometimes several people, but there was one common denominator that was brought up by everyone, which was also the same person that Mike came to me to talk about. So my short-term priority in public works is consistency, safety, and the reliability of the services that Maumelle residents have come to expect. But during that time, I want to evaluate leadership alignment and what sets the department up best for long-term with success. So with that in mind, I've appointed James Johnson as the interim Public Works Director for a 90-day period. And so with that, I'd like to ask James to come forward and introduce himself. I told him, he's familiar from the budget meetings and stuff, but I assured him y'all were very scary and would have a lot of really hard questions. So please, James, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is James Johnson, and I've been employed with the City of Maumelle for 14 years. Most recently, I was the Fleet Maintenance Supervisor. I appreciate the mayor and everybody's confidence in placing me in this interim position. There is a lot to learn for this position, and big shoes to fill. I am excited to get started with the interim position. I've actually taken a workshop program evaluation for later this month, so I can learn how to assess and improve operations. At the start, my goal is to ensure consistency delivering service and with the supervisors and teams that we have at Public Works, which are a great team. I feel that the services will be able to continue with what the public expects. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve. I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Don't hesitate to call. If I don't have the answer, I will definitely get the answer for you and get back with you.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, James.
Thank you.
Even though you've been here 14 years.
14 years. Yeah, one of the things Mike talked a lot about is that, so much of Public Works, while they may share staff, their duties are really different. Sanitation division's job is really different than the street department's job. And he really sold the fact, among other things, that in fleet maintenance, James has had the opportunity to work with sort of all the divisions in one form or another. And so I think it's in good hands, certainly in the short term, as we go forward. I put that 90-day term on there. For those that don't remember, I think Mike Hogan was an interim for 2 years before he was finally named, and so I wanted to kind of give it a trigger point to make some assessments. So welcome, James. We will move on to the financial report, which I'll be given, but before I do that, I want to give a little bit of a status update on the finance director position search. We have received a dozen or so applications, that most of which far better than the last go-round, so that's optimistic. I've narrowed it down currently to 7, and we've got some pre-interview screening calls going out this week with the goal of having interviews next week. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get that position filled. But with that, the financial report is in your packet, and just some of the updates are, with the general fund, the year-over-year revenues are mixed, but generally stable. Neither increasing nor decreasing a whole lot. The franchise fee revenues are up approximately $142,000, and county sales tax collections are up about $126,000. But the city sales tax is down roughly $97,000 compared to this time last year. And just a reminder, this is the November financial report. So the public safety revenues are down approximately $242,000 as the biggest hit, what I'll call real hit. That is primarily due to dispatching revenues no longer flowing to the city of Maumelle, and those funds instead are going to the city of North Little Rock. Miscellaneous revenues are down about $652,000 over last year, but that was because the unusually high insurance reimbursements from last year that we haven't had this year. On the expenditure side of the general fund, the most significant increase is the approximately $1.5 million in the fire department, which reflects the purchase of the fire apparatus. Citywide service expenditures are actually down about 3.7 million year over year, but I think it's really important to note that approximately $3.2 million of that decrease was because of the one-time transfer last year from the general fund to the capital improvement fund for the police and fire training facility. At the end of November, the general fund cash balance stood at approximately $5.7 million, which is above the minimum required under Ordinance 438. In the street fund, revenues are largely flat year over year, with the exception of an increase of approximately $51,000 in state turnback funds. The street expenditures are down $940,000, driven primarily by the timing of various construction or overlay projects in that department. The street fund remains healthy with cash balances of $3.3 million. The sanitation fund is in a better condition than in prior years, primarily because the revenues are up approximately $509,000, which was driven almost exclusively by the increase in sanitation fees that went into effect this year. Expenses are also a little bit higher as a result of improved staffing levels. We've seen that department staffed much better than it has been in the past. That may change when we give the December financial report, but as of November, that was the case. So while overall performance in the sanitation fund has improved, the cash balance at the end of November was approximately $211,000, which is definitely something that we want to continue to monitor closely. And that concludes my financial report. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? I prepped for this. I've prepped. Let's see. Councilmember Gardner?
I think this is pretty easy. On the sanitation fund, we just took delivery of 2 trucks, right?
Yes.
Were those paid for already out of sanitation?
Those are already out of these numbers. So
right. So that's what I meant.
Post payment.
We've still got 211 even with paying for those 2 trash trucks.
As of the end of November, yes.
Okay. Oh, that's a fair point. Yeah, the trucks.
So what the original goal was to come at the end of the year and then see if there are some of the general fund has loaned to the sanitation fund certain monies to repay those back. I think we're still at a pretty low amount that you don't want to strip that operating capital away, but we'll know more with the December financials. Councilmember Gronwald?
And you may have mentioned this as you were going through your report on the city sales tax being down 96,000. Do we know why?
Well, we had that big ding of the what is it, the sales tax rebate, the Arkansas sales tax rebate, where that 1 month we got about $600,000 less, and that was under a program where the state allows certain folks that have spent an exorbitant amount in sales taxes over several years to be able to sort of recoup some of that. And so, without naming industries, because we don't know, I assume it would be a very large, very expensive construction project that may have been built in the industrial park recently. And then we are seeing, it's hard for us to, when that number is only 97,000 off of about a $4 million budget, it's hard to, because we don't know what the numbers would have been if we didn't get that tax back. So we don't know if for that month they were up or down. We just know that the amount we got was significantly lower. And if you look at the back of the council packet, I don't have the pages, but you'll see the city sales tax numbers, primarily with the October reported numbers showed $94,000 difference there. So 94,000 less in 2025. No, I'm saying that wrong. It was $94,000 instead of what historically is closer to $300,000. And then about half of that would be also in the police and fire half cent. sales tax receipts.
And follow-up question, how is the grocery sales tax, if at all, gonna affect this? It's not gonna affect this at all?
I'm not I don't think that affects the city sales tax. I think that was just the state's portion.
Yeah, it's just the state.
So that
okay.
shouldn't have
Okay.
an impact. Well, or an economist might differ on a very small scale, but not directly.
Okay, thank you.
If there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to accept the financial report for November. I've got a motion second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. With that, we will move on to the Planning Commission report. Councilmember Booker.
All right, thank you, Mayor. All right, so a lot of these are gonna be on the agenda tonight, so I'll just summarize here. Old business, for PC meeting here was, first old business was, the proposed amendment to update chapter 90 in municipal sections to provide clarity and vegetation requirements along Maumelle Boulevard. That the staff recommended to come back to the council, and it was passed motion unanimously. Move on to the second agenda item here was the proposed code amendment to section 944448 regarding permitted uses of conditional use permits by allowing uses found in C2 as a conditional use permit for institutional use. That was a due pass. It passed unanimously. Then they went to new business. First agenda item here was temporarily use permits to allow model home sales offices for following subdivisions: the Reserve at Country Club, phase 2 and 3, 2 and 3, Stone Canyon sub, and Cypress Bend phase 2. It's recommended to be approved, and the motion passed for it to come unanimously. So it was broken out here in 3. The temporary use, all 3 were approved, so were passed. So the next was a discussion on what allowed upon approval of a preliminary plat or development plan, to clarify the language there. It was a due pass, and it passed unanimously. The next one was withdrawn. The proposed preliminary development plan and landscape plan for lots 700A. It was withdrawn by the applicant. And then the next agenda item, proposed zoning amendment for R1 to A1 zoning district for 47 plus or minus acres. Staff recommended the due pass to the city council, and it was passed as well unanimously by the committee. Let's see. Proposed amendment to the master zoning map. That was also passed unanimously. There was a next one, applicant proposed black vinyl coating fence along perimeter of property for state size lots. Board of adjustments needed for fence material. The fence variance, it was a motion approved, and it was passed unanimously. The next, number 6 here, was a CCA Phase 15 Master Street Plan Amendment referred back from the City Council from our meeting on 12/1. It's 2 separate actions for approval. Amendment to have the entry point at the Riverland Drive median cut on Maumelle Boulevard, and number 2, proposed collector. After discussion, It was, so there was a motion here on due pass of both of those. Like I said, it would be on the agenda item tonight, and they all passed unanimously.
That was a mouthful. It looks like you chose the not easiest meeting to cover from the planning commission.
Well, yeah.
You don't know what you're signing up for when you choose the date a year in advance.
Y'all chose.
Thank you, Councilmember Booker. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to have all ordinances and resolutions read by title only.
So moved.
I've got a motion, second, any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll move on to unfinished business. The only item of unfinished business is Resolution 2025-45, approving a preliminary development plan. That was one for Wynwood Heights. Y'all may recall that there was discussion over having the city engineer look at some traffic calming issues. I believe they've done that, but we're reviewing that. We're asking that this be deferred to the next council meeting instead of just rushing forward with our sort of account of what has been said there.
I'll make a motion to table resolution 2025-45 to the January 19th council meeting.
Second.
I've got a motion and second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. This will be on the next council meeting, and this has not gone back to the planning commission at this time. So with that, we'll move on to new business. The first item of new business is the council meeting protocol. Thank you to City Clerk Treasurer Tina Timmons for putting this in there. I would have completely forgot. State law requires that at the first, in January of each year, the council shall assemble and organize the governing body. We have done that primarily through ordinances, so the city clerk included a copy of those ordinances. But this is just our annual time. If anyone has thoughts on procedures, processes of the council, it's a good opportunity to bring those up. So I'll go ahead and open the floor if there's any comments on that. All right. We will move on then to the next item of new business, which is the first reading of Ordinance 1164, amending Chapter 90 of the Maumelle City Code. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Being enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1164, an ordinance to amend Chapter 90 Vegetation of the Maumelle City Code and for other purposes.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Grummer, would you like to give us an overview of what's going on here?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has come about because of a proposed development that is along Maumelle Boulevard, close to the entrance on the south side, with vegetation requirements and improvements, partly due to the 50-foot, what was a non-clearing or a non-clearing setback that was kind of contentious with some trees that came down over there. So we've got actually two items on the agenda today. One of them is grading, but this one for the vegetation. If you look at the ordinance under Section 90, Section 2, we've made some updates for properties that are along the boulevard dealing with the landscape strip, as well as provisions for placing landscape barrier on planting screens, increasing vegetation sizes for the planting screens. And then I think the more significant one as you go down is under Section 7 or number 7. We've got specimen tree preservation. We've got properties with frontage where we have the healthy trees that are 18 inches or greater in diameter with required landscaping strips should be preserved where feasible. So we've added some language in for that. We've also added under Section 4, under number 11, any trees that are 6 inches or greater within the 50 feet of the right-of-way. They have to mark that on the plans they submit to Planning Commission so we can see what are trees that are in there that are of significant size. But that just goes back into the overall planning review. And then you go down to section 5. This is where the more changes happened in the vegetation ordinance. You have, we've added a third section, separated the residential zoning out, keeping that the same at 25 foot setback for tree preservation. And then we separated industrial and commercial properties. We've got, you've got on land zoned on the boulevard, industrial would continue to be 50 feet because we do want to create a clear buffer between the boulevard and our industrial property. We do still have some industrial property along the boulevard that could be developed. But as far as commercial, that has, keeping it 50 feet along the boulevard for land that is zoned commercial, but then we added the portion of within planned unit districts. The Planning Commission may approve a reduced setback, provided the approved setback is not less than 25 feet. So this gives the Planning Commission the ability to evaluate, number one, the specimen trees that have been identified in that 50-foot area, and work with the developer to, if they want to come with a lesser setback, to give more visibility to the commercial. They can make that proposal to the Planning Commission, and they can make that determination of whether it needs to be 25, 30, or 50, whatever that is. Based on our evaluation of the areas that we have existing as commercial, we don't think that this is going to be a big impact to commercial because we did some tree surveys, staff level, and we found within a 50-foot area, we've got about 6 to 7 trees that are in 50 feet. So if you go down to 25 feet, you may have 3 or 4 trees, and that would go and count towards a reduction in their vegetation plan. So it gives credit back there. So overall, I appreciate the Planning Commission's work on this over the last several months. We've worked with residents in the area, and I believe this is an ordinance that has gotten positive feedback so far. So.
Thank you, sir. I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion. Councilmember Gardner.
Director Grummer, something I'd noticed, I think even before y'all proposed this ordinance, it just caught my eye that, so residential has a 25-foot setback from Maumelle Boulevard, right?
Yes, sir.
So if someone were building a residential development, they could clear cut all the way to 25 feet from Maumelle Boulevard, is that right? If it's an approved development?
No, sir. Wait, you say that again?
So I'm just this says that residential now has a 25-foot setback from Highway 100.
So it's a non-clearing setback that, under the description, would be where you cannot clear trees that are 6 inches and above. Is that?
Okay,
So,
I guess what I'm asking is why residential, it appears, can cut more vegetation than commercial can. Am I misreading this?
No, you're misreading it. So basically, both residential and commercial would not go below 25 feet.
Are you talking about the way it was?
Well, I'm
currently in the
talking about
ordinances?
section 5, page 4 of the actual ordinance. It's all it's section 5, subsection 3. It's all in black, so it's new language underlined. It says land zone residential, the setback shall be 25 feet.
Right. So actually, that hasn't changed. We just separated before.
Well, I think I'm sorry, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
So-
nothing's changed from the past
So,
on that.
but my point is, residential can cut up to 25 feet from the highway,
From the highway, correct.
and we're limiting commercial.
From the right of way.
From the
I
right
see
of
what
way.
you're saying. So you're saying.
I'm asking why
Is residential and commercial the same?
No, why can residential cut more trees than commercial can?
Like in the not your proposed ordinance, in the ordinances, I don't know that we can answer that all that much because it was before our time, but currently the ordinance says industrial and commercial 50 feet, residential 25 feet.
Correct.
And Councilmember Gardner's question is why that is. Do you have an idea?
Well, I mean,
We can guess.
Well, and I'm not wanting to go back in the past. Yes, that's what I was referring to. I saw that. But I also see this here where I guess you're separating it, but it's still 25 feet residential, 50 feet commercial, unless a variance is approved for commercial to go to 25 feet. Is that right?
if it's commercial zone, so if it's a C1, C2, or C3, majority of the property that we have on the Maumelle Boulevard are zone PCD or PRD. We do have one, I think one parcel that's zone C3, and they would have to come back with a variance if they want to go less than 50 feet. But what we were trying to do was, and the intent of this is to show the city's interest in trying to preserve old tree canopy or specimen trees that are large, but giving a little bit more flexibility to the planned unit districts to work with the planning commission to come up with a plan that works for each individual development, because PUDs, you know, they can really, it's just depend on the land and how it's.
And maybe this answers the question a little bit. We were trying to make both sides happy, which means inevitably we'll make both sides unhappy, which is that we just left the residential what it was, but we were trying to provide a mechanism for a thoughtful review of reducing the commercial buffer down in such a way that didn't cut a blank check to that. So it was, I think we were working on trying to draft an ordinance. I say we, I didn't do much drafting, just critiquing. Drafting an ordinance that kind of tried to make as many people happy as possible.
I do see the point, and I know that is there any residential land left along Maumelle Boulevard? I mean, so that it may not, my question may not even apply if there's not. I guess my point would be, so this land, well, that answers the question. But this land that has had recent trees cut, if it were residential, it would have been perfectly fine, right?
Well, let me correct that. On the other side of the boulevard, I think there is still some PRD, but it would still fall under the PUD.
Oh, sure.
So it would fall under the 25 to 50 foot.
It just jumped out at me as odd as I was reading the previous one, because I was like, okay, so residential neighborhoods can be cut closer to Maumelle Boulevard.
Correct.
Here's a
But
fun,
we're pushing our commercial business properties.
So, and to answer your original question, if I may, so I think decades ago, whenever this was created, the intent was to try to shield the parking lot areas which are pushed up to the boulevard, so that you just weren't looking at parking. It created a more visual or tree canopy in the front. That has not been the case. It's developed out commercial-wise without that, and so we've got two areas that we're trying to balance out here, and this, in my opinion, is a way that creates an ordinance in which we can actually go, and in a PUD, we can go back to the PUD ordinance and use that language there as criteria by which we evaluate this area of 25 to 50 foot commercial.
So how will this affect active developments that are currently ongoing?
So I've spoken with the current landowners and the developer on the particular property over here at CCA 15, where the trees have come down on the boulevard, and they were concerned initially as to whether if this is still going to be the same or not. But when you look at the trees within even a 25-foot area, they're not significant growth. They're more smaller. Most of the growth is in the right-of-way, which would not be touched anyway. So to them, it's really not going to impact that development that much, I don't believe. But whenever they come with future development plan, they will have to identify the specimen trees in that area.
Well, I guess, and I'm glad to know that it wouldn't necessarily affect that, but I guess what I'm asking is, this will go into effect as of, if it's passed, and then at a date in the future, but plans that have already been submitted and passed by planning, that's what I'm asking.
Those have been pulled. The current restaurant that was on the planning commission, they pulled their item, and I believe they're waiting on the developer to come up with a master landscape plan, which is actually on January's agenda with Planning Commission to look at
Okay.
for the overall development. And then the restaurant will, hopefully come back with a revised plan that meets
Okay.
both the ordinance as well as the
So all
landscape.
that stuff that was passed through planning, whenever it passed, is gonna have to come back for that development.
That's correct. And
Okay.
that's on the agenda for January.
Okay.
And that's been posted to the agenda center.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Grunwald?
Well, Councilmember Gardner stole my thunder. That was my question. So thank you for that. And that is a good, answer. That was very clear. I am concerned though about the applicant withdrawing their application, but you're saying that it's just until the landscaping plans get sorted out.
I mean, it's possible.
We believe that they're gonna come back.
I believe, there's no guarantee in that. They
Sure.
could end up backing out all entirely. And this is the challenge that we have when we're trying to, and this is the kickback that we get. So let me take my planning hat off and put my economic developer hat
Right.
on. You know, it becomes a challenge to develop land when it's constantly tied up with trying to get entitlements.
Right.
And this is an entitlement, and if they're constantly drugged then they're gonna go elsewhere where it's easier. But with that being said, I believe, from a planning perspective, as well as from an economic development perspective, we can meet in the middle and we can find a way in which we can preserve the beauty of Maumelle. We can work together with developers, but also meet the needs and intent of the residents who live around here, who want to see a beautiful city. Now, I'm going to say this. When you develop new land and you want to show the commercial on the frontage, which it's going to have to be that way, it's very difficult to preserve trees that are there because you're still grubbing the undergrowth. You're disturbing that. So it's a lot of times they'll say that they're going to die anyway. And so from my standpoint, I would much rather see a beautified landscape plan that is going to show future growth. And you see that on Maumelle Boulevard in the town center area when you're driving on by Sonic or down there in that area. None of that was originally there. It was all cleared out, but it's grown over the last few decades, and now you're starting to see that new growth. So it's always a scar whenever development comes in, and I know it really can set some people aside, but if we want to grow and if we want to create opportunity for commercial growth, we're going to have to work through these. But anyway, I think based on everything we've worked on, I believe that with the preservation of trees in the frontage, it's not going to block or screen the commercial. I think it's still going to provide opportunity, and it's still going to create opportunity for good visibility on the boulevard.
And I agree with you. There's a delicate balance between preserving the beauty of Maumelle and the trees and the landscape, and then also bringing businesses in where a lot of times it feels like our hands are tied a little bit. And I worry about businesses like this one withdrawing and not coming back before they even have a chance to get in. So I'm very concerned on both sides. This feels like a good compromise. My question is, since this is the first reading, second and third, so third reading will be the first meeting in March, is that right?
First meeting in
February, yeah, February. What was this business's original, you may or may not know this, date to kind of get in there and get settled and open? Do you have any idea? I'm just curious how far back this has pushed them.
Well, they had, if I recall, they were trying to get their entitlements all completed by September or October. So we're already now into January, and that means February, but they're not going to apply at the soonest until February, which means a March city council. So the earliest they would see an entitlement would be March, first meeting in March.
So that puts them behind at least 6 months, 6, 7 months.
If the problem is that if the development plan that's coming through in January isn't approved in February by the city council, then they may not apply, and they may wait until something's done. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any, don't go too far, Scott, but you
yes,
can have a seat.
no, I brought my water
Oh,
bottle.
we're just getting started. I got a water bottle. Is there any additional discussion on ordinance 1164? All right, that'll be on second reading at the next council meeting, which brings us to the first reading of ordinance 1165, amending section 94-448 of the Maumelle City Code. Madam City Clerk.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled ordinance number 1165, an ordinance to amend section 94-448, conditional use planned commercial districts of the Maumelle City Code and for other purposes.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Grummer?
All righty, so actually, I'm going to turn this one over to Jason Line, planner. But before I do that, I wanted to make an announcement that I made in Planning Commission in December. I want to congratulate Mr. Line. He has actually accepted a position with the city of Benton as their Director of Community Development. So he'll be doing what I'm doing in the city of Benton. It's going to leave a gaping hole here at the city because he is over a lot of things, GIS-related planning. So we're scrambling very quickly to try to make sure that we have that legacy planning, and we're going to continue on with what he's got. But this was Jason's baby, and I'm going to let him close it out and have a last experience with City Council.
Make sure it's a rough one, please.
So this code amendment was to kind of clarify some commercial uses. It all originated from a call regarding a assisted living facility, nursing home. And if you looked at our code, assisted living is not defined in the code, and it's also not a allowable use in a PCD zone, although we have conditional uses throughout the city that have allowed assisted living nursing homes in a PCD. So this is clarifying the language to allow an assisted living facility, nursing home, health facilities in a PCD, and also the other C2 uses, but by conditional use. Our current code right now allows limited retail and office uses by right in PCD. This now pushes the rest of the C2 uses, which includes institutional and non-institutional uses, into the PCD, but by conditional use only. So it allows a developer more leverage on where they want to go, but it also allows the council and the city to not pick and choose, but allow with conditions those certain uses, so it doesn't get overused. And it also helps with these existing uses that are potentially looking at selling in a minor use change. It just clarifies for them for any title searches, and we get all the zoning letters, so it just helps clarify and just allows our use to keep on going in the existing use and existing zone.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions, comments, concerns, discussion? Thank you, sir. Good luck in Benton. I'm probably going to stomp on your toes every time I see you at a Metro Plan meeting or something, but congratulations. With that, this will be on second reading at the next council meeting. We'll move on to the first reading of ordinance 1166, amending the city code regarding grading. Madam City Clerk.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled ordinance number 1166, an ordinance to amend the Maumelle City Code regarding the commencement of grading and clearing activities following the approval of a preliminary development plat or development plan and for other purposes.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Grimmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this item is in response to concerns over, again, the grading that happened at that area CCA 15 along the boulevard. So when I came into this position, we continued the practices as far as what I understood when it came to PRDs and PCDs with allowing for grading. There wasn't clear language in the ordinance, so what we've done after all that and working with the Planning Commission, we've updated our ordinances and we've improved the language both in our subdivision section 70 as well as section 94 when it comes to our overall subdivision development. But part of that is under our grading plan we've updated. So you'll see in section 70, which is our subdivision ordinance, we've added language that says that installation of required public improvements excluding land clearing, grubbing, or mass grading activities which requires a grading permit. So we added that in there just to make sure that it shows a requirement to get a grading permit before any land alterations begin. And then under 9413, we've got all uses shall be issued only after all site and grading plans or preliminary plat and preliminary development plan approvals have been made. Between all of that, we've also added language for physical protections to create delineated areas where we have tree protection. So we've added language for improvement of that. And then we've also just included language of activities that we currently do but wasn't in there, installation of documentation of all SWEPs and best management practices be fully functional and inspected. So that's just additional language that went in. So the Planning Commission, of course, recommended approval of these ordinance changes.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion. Seeing none, this will be on second reading at the next City Council, which brings us to the first reading of ordinance 11. Before I move on, I want to applaud Scott and his team a little bit. Oftentimes you encounter code that is just kind of been there for a long time, and it's really easy to just tell someone no. Sorry, that's the way the code is. I know it doesn't make sense anymore, or it's really easy to do that. It takes a lot of work to encounter those problems time and time again and go through the effort of trying to draft the ordinances. And so, while I sometimes wonder how come we're always changing the code, I think that's far more preferable to a scenario where we just don't change the code and the code remains the same no matter what. So with that, we'll move on to ordinance 1167, amending the zoning map. Madam City Clerk.
Excuse me. Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1167, an ordinance to amend the city's zoning map for 47.948 acres, more or less, at Zajac Road, to be developed as Vauban Lake Estates, and for other purposes.
Thank you. Scott?
So Planning Commission approved the request for rezoning of this land that has been in the city for quite some time. There was previously approved rezoning. It was R1. The landowner originally wanted to be agricultural. Of course, this is one of those that came in with that new zoning change. They still want it to be residential, so nothing on the development plan has changed from what was approved from the Planning Commission originally, but what this does is with the larger lots, and they are in a county, not the county, they're adjacent to the county, more rural setting, they want to be able to allow opportunities for having chickens and maybe even a horse or whatnot on their land, which you cannot do in an R1 zone. So that's one of the values of the agri in these more rural settings, having larger lots and allowing a little bit more flexibility with use. The land use would stay the same as a single family, which is what it currently is. So they're just requesting a rezone to A1.
Thank you. I'll open the floor for discussion. Seeing none, this will be on second reading at the next meeting, which brings us to the first reading of ordinance 1168, amending the master street plan. Madam City Clerk.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1168, an ordinance to amend the city's master street plan, Country Club Phase 15, curb cut, and for other purposes.
Thank you, ma'am. Scott?
Well, ma'am is my wife who's watching me right now, so I'm going to blow her a kiss. She probably is saying, why do you keep sitting down? Because all these are yours. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you recall, you sent this back to Planning Commission for further review concerning that area over there on CCA 15. Planning Commission discussed it. There was probably consensus that the items didn't necessarily need to be broken out as it was requested, but they did break them out for the purpose of you being able to have the conversation concerning the access point at Riverland Drive as well as the access point or the Master Street Plan Amendment. So, of course, this particular item is to add the curb cut, at the existing, well, yes, so recommendation is, the preferred location for access into this is at the Riverland intersection. But if RDOT, when the processes go forward, say that this is not a safe area or this is not the prime location, it needs to be somewhere else, then the other approved median cut, which is mid-block, would remain, and that's where it would be. But if the Riverland connection is approved, then the mid-block would go away, basically.
Thank you, sir. I'll open the floor for discussion. Seeing none, this will be on second reading at the next meeting, which brings us to ordinance 1169, amending the master street plan. Madam City Clerk.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled ordinance number 1169, an ordinance to amend the city's master street plan, Country Club of Arkansas, Phase 15, Collector, and for other purposes.
Mr. Grummer.
So as mentioned before, this is the preferred location by staff as to where the collector needs to come off of the boulevard for entry into this. So we placed it on there with it going in as far as any future connection from North Little Rock. That would have to come later on down the line whenever a development plan is presented to Planning Commission. We'll take those items into consideration.
Open the floor for discussion. Councilmember Gardner.
I guess my question is, why are these two separate ordinances? I missed that. I don't remember asking to make it two, but whatever, because they go hand in hand. You don't want to approve Riverland and not take away the curb cut at the half block, right?
Well, originally what I think was discussed is splitting off not the Riverland and the median cut, but the connection at Riverland versus the road connecting into North Little Rock. But what we got back was splitting the median cut from the Riverland entrance with no comment on the connection.
Yeah, and Paul Hills' future, I'm just asking, do we need to vote for both of these? Or?
Yes, sir.
So what's the difference between this one and the one you gave us previously, is what I'm asking. I'm trying to look at the maps to see what's changed.
Well, I think possibly the last one, we had the Riverland connection looking like it was going straight up into North Little Rock as a connection, and I think there was some controversy on having Paul Hills come directly into the city of Maumelle and at that intersection. So we did curve it around with just showing the intent of we want the Maumelle to be the priority street, and as to the connection, I believe in conversation with the city attorney, I don't think that we can restrict access per se to North Little Rock. But at this point, any future connection hasn't even been proposed to us by the developers. We're just mainly trying to get access into the property.
So 1168, which was the previous one, does what?
So that approves a curb cut off the boulevard
At Riverland.
at Riverland.
And
Yes.
1169 does what?
It is the proposed collector coming off of Riverland going into the property.
Is that not the same thing?
Technically, but a curb cut, we have curb cut shown on the master street plan. We have roundabouts versus, different things. We have the proposed roads. So that's a proposed road, and then we have a proposed entry point. So we technically not, but
Okay,
I don't know.
Okay.
I think the past contention was the residents of Riverland did not want a connection there. So, I don't know.
I think a mid-block road is much worse. But, I mean, and y'all approved this, y'all sent this to us, with a due pass recommendation. My question was just why it was two ordinances. I was trying to figure out the differences.
Well, we're a little confused by the last, as to when it
Okay.
came back, as to what you wanted us to do. I guess I was a little confused.
So I feel like are we saying that we can't, that the city has no control over whether a road can border another city?
Well, we
Or
have,
the idea that, because you said the city attorney said we couldn't control access to the road.
so this does not, has nothing to do with connection to North Little
Okay,
Rock.
so how do we get something that does?
Well, if you-
I feel like that was what we were talking about last time, and this is not it. What we were talking about is the master street plan that was presented at that time had the connection at Riverland that kind of went to, ultimately up to Orleans, and it also had the Paul Eels connection. And my point that entire time discussing that was that I am 100% in favor of the access point being, assuming the engineers go through that process and the traffic engineers ensure that it's safe. Everything that we see at our end shows that that's the safer and most efficient location for the ingress to that property as opposed to the mid-block. The separate issue that I thought could be split out is whether or not we're also showing a connection up into North Little Rock. And so, because that has been more hotly contested and has, I think, been the actual issue that they were talking about. When you read the survey that the residents signed, it dealt more with the connection into Little Rock. That fits, I mean, we heard multiple things from the residents that showed up, including trees, access, but also whether or not that goes up into the North Little Rock area there. So it was my understanding that the council was sending it back to split that idea of Riverland as something I'm 100% behind, and then the other one as being maybe not as unanimous in my mind anyways.
Well, and the conversation at Planning Commission and where we stand as well is that that's not for city council to determine or for the planning commission or for residents because.
And so the planning commission was saying it's not for the council to decide?
When it comes to connection to North Little Rock, because RDOT looks at the connectivity when they're making the determinations.
Yeah, but
of
if
all
we're
kinds of
looking at the
things.
connectivity, maybe we should have had this conversation before the meeting. If we're looking at the connectivity or where we're placing roads, I think it's well within this body's authority to determine whether you're running a road right on a border of another city or if you're requiring a setback or distance. We've had this conversation with Pinnacle Heights, for instance, where they just wanted to, or other areas where they've wanted connection into Maumelle, but we had that buffer and wouldn't allow that because the road wasn't on the border. I think if you have a road that's on the border, that we don't have a say because it's right there and they can tap into the parts that are there. But if we're talking about, like, I don't want this to just be stated as we had no choice but to make a connection to Paul Eels. And I feel like that's what's being talked about now, is that we're not to decide. This isn't, it just doesn't feel like what my understanding of the council sent back to the planning commission to decide is what was presented to them.
And Mr. Mayor, what may be better is if you want to act on the connection separately at the Riverland, and as far as the collector and where it rolls and how it shows on the master street plan, when the development plan that's coming through Planning Commission in January, that's going to provide more detail as to what they have now worked out as to the location of the road. When that's presented, that typically triggers another, does it conform with the master street plan? If it doesn't, then we come back with a change. And we can have those conversations either with with another master street plan amendment or a modification to this one, or have that conversation with the development plan that comes through, which is typically when either the approvals or the denials are as to where the road alignments are going to be. The master street plan is always just meant for just theoretical proposals of where we assume roads are going to go, and then the development plans work out the fine details.
Personally, I'm fine with what we have, And I agree that we should take up the Paul Ills issue at some point down the road. I don't think we have to delay this, because this deals more with the access off of Riverland.
Yes,
And it removes that mid-block cut, which is gonna interfere with any plan that you're trying to work through planning commission, right?
'Cause-
Because with that mid-block cut there, that completely changes how people have to plan their developments.
Well, and the existing grade and what they can and can't do as far as connectivity is gonna be dictated by the engineering and the grade of the land, so we can't, this is more of a preliminary phase before you even get into the development. And I don't wanna run ahead of other activities that are taking place right now. And I think, I kinda hear now what you're saying, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if we can achieve that on the master street plan.
Well, I think the most appropriate place to achieve it is in the master street plan. If you're talking about a collector that connects with another city, if not the master street plan, then we don't leave it up to developer by developer, plans that are submitted. Here's my concern. I'm undecided on the connection. I don't want this council to think that that's something that's gonna be decided later. A road gets put down as a preliminary development plan that borders North Little Rock, and then North Little Rock by right connects to it, and this council thought some decision was coming to it that isn't actually coming to it. Especially an issue that the residents have been so vocal on, whether it's thumbs up or thumbs down, that feels like an issue that this body should decide, and that the most appropriate place for it to decide is in a master street plan, not an individual preliminary development plan, which, by the way, is the perfect place to discuss whether the road is gonna be over here or there, because we don't do the survey level things, but the general concept of whether there's gonna be a collector into another city should be addressed by this body at some point in some document, and I don't know what's better than the master street plan. I just don't wanna get to the point where we, make a decision, or we tell people we're making a decision, and then it's just taken out of this body's hand, and then we're sitting here with what, mud in our face. So with that said, I don't know that has to be resolved tonight, and I do have more, lights on. Councilmember Gronwald?
Did I?
Okay.
Well, I do have something to say. I mean, since I don't remember lighting myself up, but I've always got something to say. So I think I understand. This has been extraordinarily confusing to everybody, multiple times over. So I'm gonna try to say it in my words and see if I understand it correctly. So you just said that the Master Street plan is more generic, general. And then as we get those details a little bit more whittled down, then it becomes or goes into the development plan. Is that right? Did I understand that?
Right, because the lines on the master street plan are meant to set the city's intent and purpose of what they're trying to achieve. But where that line actually is can waver a little bit. What we look at is, are we in the general area, and are we achieving the intended purpose from the master street plan? With that said, though, and I mentioned it before, is that anytime that an amendment comes in is when a developer proposes something that does not conform with the existing master street plan. This started with the original subdivision plat and that came through the city. It is now coming back with a modification, so you could almost say that this may be a meeting ahead, I don't know, or a couple of meetings ahead of where it needs to be. I can say that the connection at Riverland has been, that's pretty clear. As to the actual, where that collector goes in, I have no problem with holding that off until we get more information from the proposals that are coming down the line. I mean, that's
And I understand what the mayor's saying as well, that it seems more logical to get some of these details worked out and understood in the master street plan before we get into the detailed development plan, because it almost seems like it's too late at that point. Here's my other question. I don't think I'm clear on where RDOT comes into play. So if we all decide that the Riverland is where we want to go, and it sounds like it is, it sounds like it doesn't make sense to any of us to have that mid-block cut. Um, do we make the recommendation or the request to RDOT and they say yay or nay? Where does RDOT come in? That's where I'm confused.
Well, RDOT has to approve the curb cut themselves, but one of the things that we are doing right now is trying to get a corridor study from, working with MetroPlan to give us a better idea as to, and they're supposed to look at this.
I don't, my presumption is, I would like to see a curb cut before that study gets completed. We haven't even got the study authorized to be funded by RDOT, only by MetroPlan, so. But during that request for a curb cut, they'll make a determination, as to whether or not it's safe to do so in that location. And if they decide that's not a safe location for the curb cut, is where it would revert back to the.
So then we have to start all over.
No, I think they've built that contingency in such that it reverts back to the mid-block entrance, is that
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna try for option 1 first. If RDOT in the study denies that, then it's built in that it would go to option 2.
Correct.
We're gonna call an audible, okay. And Paul Eels is somewhere mixed in with all of that.
No.
We've pulled Paul Eels out.
Well, again, I think we have more information that's coming down the Planning Commission pipeline that we need more information for you to be able to make and so right now, this is more of, in the Planning Commission agreed that we don't have development plans yet from the developers to propose anything further than what we've shown you here. So this is more simply entry into the property. Where it goes from there, then that's gonna have to be in, as far as any amendment to the master street plan, I mean, we're gonna have to have a connection to this.
So, back to my previous question, about the applicant, it kind of bears on this as well. How much is this gonna delay any businesses opening and being able to function?
Right now, we have, let me back up. We do have another business that is interested in locating here. And that
great.
business is gonna be, they're gonna need an entry into it, either here or there. So, we need that to move forward as to whether or not if we can have a curb cut at this location. Working out the details of how it connects into North Little Rock, again, that's gonna be on Planning Commission this month. I don't think it's gonna delay anything, but I think we need at least some sort of entitlement showing, not entitlement, we need some sort of direction from city council, whether if we can enter here or not.
So these ordinances would again, back to the business that we were talking about earlier, these are all on first reading again. So we're gonna hopefully get them approved in third reading in the first February meeting, correct?
That's correct.
Then it has to possibly go to RDOT for the study, right?
The
I'm
studies.
just trying to get a timeline.
The study is not, they're not gonna hold off until the study's complete. They haven't even authorized the study. So I think it makes more sense to take that out of the picture. I don't,
Okay.
unless this doesn't get a curb cut for quite some time, I don't think they're gonna include that.
Okay.
They will, just as every curb cut on the boulevard, we don't have a whole lot, but they occur all the time in North Little Rock. They make, they have to approve that process, and that's just the standard RDOT approval
I mean,
process.
I can describe what's coming in January, if that may help you understand a little bit about what's happening, but because, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. This curve is actually meant to continue on, and they've negotiated with the land in North Little Rock to actually place a majority of the road following the boundary in North Little Rock and not in Maumelle, in order to give more room to Maumelle for commercial development. Which means the road's gonna be in North Little Rock, so you're gonna see a potential connection in North Little Rock, I'm assuming, because that's gonna tie into development into because they're all working together to try to have a cohesive development. I can't show that here because we haven't run it through and we haven't vetted it at the planning commission stage. So right now, really all this does is say, this is where the proposed entry into the property is. And then as the developments move forward, you're gonna see the development plan because that's required to come to city council. And you'll see that and we'll act on it. And that's where we're probably gonna have more of the fleshing out of what we want, what we don't want. If we don't approve it, then it goes back to the drawing board.
Do we have to approve these ordinances before we get the development plan?
I would say that in my opinion, I think I need that curb cut at Riverland. That's the most critical one because that's where this month's development is tying into. If you feel like that is something that is where everybody's agreeable, at least the one ordinance for the curb cut at Riverland, you know, staff is recommending and planning commission recommending approval of that. As far as the actual collector component, I don't think that is really a primary issue right now. We can alter that.
A primary issue for who? That's my concern, is I keep saying that this is an issue that is brought up time and time again by residents that deserves a thumb up and thumbs down. So to say it's not a primary concern is what I'm saying is the problem.
I'm sorry, it's not that it's not a concern, it's that I can't show it because I don't have the development plan through planning commission yet.
You need to show a curb cut.
I need to show a curb cut so that they can technically show what they're bringing through January this month. If the curb cut doesn't happen, then what's coming through this month doesn't even work.
The curb cut's the first domino.
It is the domino, and then as the development plan comes through, then we'll have the further, so and whether if that master street plan, actually that's, you know.
See, and I kind of know what's going on, and that's why I'm saying it needs to, what's gonna happen is there's not gonna be a choice on the connection to Polioles, right? It's just kind of gonna be part of the preliminary development plan and say, oh, that's in North Little Rock. No one needs to thumbs up and thumbs down that. And each of us is sitting on a board that has had residents come up and express that as a concern. And just be careful what's kind of coming is that's not really, it's just gonna be kind of blended into the development. And I'm not even necessarily opposed or in favor of that connection. I just think it's a really big thing that needs to be discussed. But I feel like for the first reading, we've got stuff, I can include a memo or those things. I do agree with the connection on Riverland. I'm just saying, don't blink, or, you know, the opportunity to weigh in on that may pass us by. Councilmember Gardner?
Well, we can't talk about all this in a bubble because it all connects to everything. We've got these businesses, we don't have much business opportunity along the boulevard. And I'll just say this, I think we would be doing future businesses along the boulevard here a disservice if we do not connect it to Polioles in North Little Rock. I think that connection needs to be made down the line so that residents from both cities can flow back and forth off of the boulevard. So that's not a part of this, but I wanted to put that out there personally. I think we need to make that connection so that traffic can flow.
And I think that's a discussion we need to have as a higher level concept that has lots of merits for and maybe some against. So I don't necessarily like that. I think you're right. It's just, when is the time to have that conversation? Is it when we're looking at a land or a master street plan, or when you have an applicant that's right there saying, so.
I know here it shows a bend, and so be it, and we can come back. I mean, this will obviously involve another master street plan amendment at some point if we make that connection. And that's fine if we have another conversation about it. I'll just go on the record now stating I think we need to connect it to support our Maumelle businesses in the future. But this is a completely separate item right now. So I think we've talked about this a lot.
Councilmember Wesley?
And I agree. Question, I'm hearing two different words, collector and connector. Are those two different things that we're talking about right here?
Well, I guess we're talking about a connection to, at Maumelle Boulevard. So that's a connection from a curb cut into the property. The collector is the classification of the street.
Okay,
So, such as Maumelle Boulevard is considered a major arterial.
okay,
We have minor arterials, and then we have collectors, and then local roads. So
Okay.
this is a collector to collect traffic from Maumelle Boulevard, and
at the new connection from the curb cut.
that's correct.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, does anyone have anything else for the first reading? Okay, sounds good. We'll, we'll move on. And Scott, you can have a seat. I think we're, at least for a minute, done with your stuff. That brings us to Resolution 2026-01, expressing a willingness to utilize grant funding. Madam City Clerk.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution number 2026-01, a resolution expressing the willingness of the City of Maumelle to utilize climate pollution reduction grant funding for multi-use trail construction.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, we've been on a pretty stellar roll applying for grants and getting them recently. Y'all know we applied for and received a $500,000 grant for Lake Willistine trail improvements. There's still more trail. We haven't started that project, but there's more trails in and around Lake Willistine. We'd like to apply for additional grants for that and kind of leverage off our prior acceptance. And so this is the resolution for that. This grant is an 80-20 grant. No, this one is the 100% grant, I believe. This is the 100% grant. So I'll open the floor for discussion. Councilmember Williams.
Motion to adopt resolution 2026-01.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. That brings us to the next resolution. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2026-02, a resolution expressing the willingness of the City of Maumelle to utilize climate pollution reduction grant funding for the purchase of planting trees throughout the city.
Thank you, ma'am. Again, it's the same grant. This is actually similar to the grant that MetroPlan had additional CPRG funds left over, so they put out another call for projects. We already received that several million for the White Oak Trail Green Network, which has some plantings and wetland rehab out there. We want to apply for this phase for trees around the city. We think we've located some locations that we'd like to apply for, up to and including in Maumelle Boulevard right away, though that's a bigger undertaking than it sounds like. So that's what this resolution is.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I've got a motion and second to approve Resolution 2026-02. Any discussion on that matter? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is Resolution 2026-03, expressing willingness to utilize grant funding. Madam City Clerk.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2026-03, a resolution expressing the willingness of the City of Maumelle to utilize federal aid transportation alternative program funds.
Thank you, ma'am. This is the 80-20 grant. This is applying for a grant. We have completed engineering of the Woodland Trail connection that would connect it all the way up to Edgewood and then all the way down to Odom. And there's a few intersection changes that were the ones recommended in the active transportation plan to improve crossing there, which essentially connects the Rolling Oaks soccer complex, football fields, to Woodland Trail that has a park, and then ultimately to the community center and the schools. Open the floor for discussion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Got a motion second to approve Resolution 2026-03. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. That concludes new business. On to mayor's comments. I just want to recommend that everyone go ahead and check out maumellebond.com. That has the bond projects. Courtney's been working hard on getting it so that we can educate and inform people about the measures that will be on the ballot in March. And then I'll go ahead and pass out or announce soon some of the different things we're doing. We have currently scheduled some public hearings that are kind of project specific or just several projects at one meeting. So those people that are interested in those projects can come there. I'm not sure if the Demgaz will have an article tomorrow or the next day, but they were writing something today on it. We're trying to spread the word on that, and I'll give you all an update on what that communication plan is and what some of those things are. In the meantime, please point people to maumellebond.com, where we're trying to make sure that we're educating the public on those measures. The goal is that we don't get to the end of February or March and people say, well, I have no clue what these projects are. How come no one has told us about it? So that's that. Then that concludes mayor's comments, I believe. Council member comments? Councilmember Shin?
I've got 3 different points here. A few meetings ago, I brought up a complaint that I had about electric vehicles on the trails over at Williston. I spoke with the lady again. She has told me a story of, she was coming up on the small bridge. There was a couple with a dog. A young man on a electric scooter or bicycle came through, nearly knocked them down. She commented to him. He smarted off to her and went on. She went on around, and when she got to the large bridge, he and 3 friends had the bridge blocked where she couldn't cross. So when other people came up, they went across. They did call the police. They did file a police report. But it was a case where someone else who was there said, oh yeah, every day about 3:30 that young man shows up and does this. So we may have to revisit the electric vehicle changes that we made on the trails. I don't know how we're going to regulate it, because we didn't have anything. We only allowed bicycles and pedestrians, and we at least discussed making some allowances for electric vehicles. So,
I don't think we ever did though, right?
honestly don't remember.
I can't think of anything.
Okay. I received a call from the residents of Clan Lane.
Pardon me?
Of Clan Lane, which is not in Maumelle. Clan Lane, which is next to Stone Canyon. And they expressed concern that the water and sewer that's coming through there is coming down their property, not the property that belongs to the developers.
Like the stormwater, the rain runoff?
No, the
Sewer.
water and sewer.
Pipes?
Yes. I mean, that's what
Okay.
it looks like. I drove out there, and it was pouring down rain, but, and that would be, I guess, CAW?
You want discharge or pipes?
No pipes.
I'm not
But
sure
it's-
who
I mean,
installed it.
Clan Lane is not in the city, it's in the county.
It's right at 365.
Yes,
Okay.
just before you
Yeah,
get,
I've seen
just
it.
before you get there.
I've seen that sign.
And third thing, did we have our food truck plan yet for Millwood Station? I'm having people inquire.
You can send them to the city's website, where we're taking interest forms. Last I checked, I'm not sure if we've updated it since. But they can sign up an interest for, you're talking about like for for like potential vendors?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Potential vendors.
And the idea is that project will be complete fairly soon, but we're gonna save or my proposal, what I'm planning to do is to save the sort of ribbon cutting grand opening till March, so that we don't have it and then have a period of, we wanna start in the peak, is my opinion. Any additional council member comments?
What's everybody doing tomorrow at 3:30?
Working. Depends. What's going on?
We'll just meet at Lake Williston
Oh.
on the bridge.
I might would take off early for that.
I'll do it.
Might be my son. I don't. There's more to the story. I hope it's not. No, it's not.
All right, city attorney comments? City clerk comments?
Yes, I do actually. I just wanted to remind you guys that we are still accepting applications. You can send me an email of interest for 2 open positions on the planning commission. I am accepting those applications until the 14th, 4 o'clock. Please, if you are interested in participating, you can email me, you can drop it off, cityclerk@maumelle.org if you are interested, or if you know someone who is. And lastly, I just want to remind you guys that your SOFIs, your statement of financial interests, they are due by January the 31st. You can bring them to me and I'll file them in my office, or you also have the option of filing them with the county clerk. Just keep in mind, when you do file with the county clerk opposed to the city clerk, I don't have access to those records. Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn the city council meeting of January the 5th, 2025.
Second.
I've got a motion, second discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.